It's Two on the Aisle with me, Charles Gross, and Leslie Hoban Blake. Tonight, reviews of Jonah, After Midnight, Days of Wine and Roses, and Prayer for the French Republic. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Two on the Aisle. Good evening, everyone. I am Charles Gross.
And I'm Leslie Hoban Blake. Welcome to Two on the Aisle.
And we have shows to talk about tonight.
We do.
Where shall
they're
we
coming
start?
fast and furious.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you begin with Jonah?
Jonah.
Yeah.
Written by Rachel Bonds and directed by Dana Tamor. Jonah is an interesting show because it's named Jonah. And it does indeed have a character named Jonah. Mm-hmm. Jonah is this high school student, and he has a crush on this girl named Anna. Mm-hmm. And Anna likes Jonah. So we see their relationship. They're at this boarding school, this boarding high school, mm-hmm. and we see their romance develop, and their adolescence is, shall we say, on display. They, mm-hmm. It's a little awkward at times. And then all of a sudden, Jonah gets sucked into the darkness. And Danny, Anna's stepbrother, is there. Mm-hmm. And then Jonah comes back, and he gets sucked away again. And we don't see Jonah until like one scene at the end of the play. And from there, the play kind of time shifts. So why the play isn't called Anna, I don't know, because it is about Anna. We see Anna in high school. We see Anna in college. We see Anna after college and living in an artist colony. She's a successful writer.
Okay. I have an answer to your question.
Okay.
I'm not sure it's the right answer because
Okay.
I have to tell you that this thing confused the hell out of me.
Mm-hmm.
I was not sure what I was seeing. I was not sure what was going on. But what I found was I started to go with it. And we've had discussions about long plays. We've had discussions about plays that take a great deal of time. This took its time. So I was waiting for something that I could connect to come in. Well, what I connected to was some brutality, some really mind work that was done on Anna by Jonah or by any of the men in her life, things that stayed with her all her life. Each time she grew up or changed or was in a different scene, the memory of these things was still with her. I think that's what this is about. This is my interpretation. My mind always tries to figure out what the hell is going on. In Infinite Life, which we both loved, which was by Annie Baker and was very long and had great long girls, they told you what the time was. They told you it was 2 days later. They told you it was 3 months after. This doesn't tell you where you're going. So I wasn't sure if we were forward in time, backward in time, in imaginary land. I was
and
never
it doesn't help that the set is the same. The set never changes.
And she barely changes her clothes.
Right. So, in fact, there's one scene where I think a plant has been knocked over.
Right.
And then when she time shift again, there's also a plant. Not the same one, but how are we supposed to know that?
Yeah, that's a fine touch.
It's a puzzle. By the way, I don't think she was abused by Jonah. She was apparently abused by her
stepbrother, whomever she was abused by. But
and she also
then Jonah was the love of her life that she didn't get.
Well,
I mean, there's an answer.
I don't think so. But that's another story. Jonah seems to play a very minuscule role. I'm not even sure how he fits in. He seems to be a boy that Anna knew in high school, and that's it.
That she may have loved unconditionally, and then all of these problems came along in her life. Men caused her difficulty. She had problems relating to them in the secondary part of the script. You didn't feel that?
Again, I don't feel that had anything. That all seemed to be pre-Jonah. A lot of that, though.
It could be pre-Jonah.
The problems, and there's a third man in her life, Stephen, who she meets at the artist colony,
right.
who
may or may not be normal and
well, we don't know. And here's my problem. All these puzzles of Anna's life mm-hmm. eventually do fall into place. Mm-hmm. But by the time they do, I no longer care. I'm sorry, Anna.
I know.
And I miss Jonah.
And here's the thing. Anna was played, I don't know the guy, I don't know any of the men who played the men, even though some of their credits say that I should know them, but I don't. But Gabby Beans knocked my socks off in Skin of Our Teeth. I adored her. I thought she was just the next best thing, and I couldn't wait to see her again. And here I found her colorless. I found her just blah. Did you find any interest in her at all?
At first, Yes, when she was with Jonah.
The first time or the second time?
Both times.
I see.
And
okay.
even later in the play, where she has not a reunion with him, it goes back to when they were in high school, and she says, "Well, pretend we're meeting after 20 years."
Right.
Which I thought was interesting. And I liked the character. I liked how I liked the character of Jonah. I liked how the two of them interacted with each other. But I really eventually lost interest in Anna. And by the time I knew her life story,
I definitely lost interest. Yeah.
I really didn't care.
I thought I was going to feel more of a connection when I started to see that it was about abuse in some way, but I didn't really. It just nothing. I don't know. It just didn't make its point for me either, and I would give it a 2.
I will go as far as 2.5.
Okay.
And I still would love to know why is it called Jonah? Why is it not called Anna?
I'm thinking that means that Jonah. You know, there was a thing on. We probably won't be able to show this part, but there was a thing on Sunday morning. You know, that CBS show, and it was about a man who wrote a book about regret. And he said, no matter how old you get, you still remember that first boy who kissed you when you were 7, or the guy you liked in high school that got away. So suddenly that featured into Jonah for me. I thought maybe that was what that was about. Because I was still trying to figure it out, you know,
but they never do tell us how or why.
No, not really.
So,
and we got the script. I looked at it. I'm sure you did as well.
I did.
It didn't clarify for me the things that I needed to clarify.
They got rid of the most interesting character in the play.
Speaking of abuse,
oh,
I'm going to
okay.
segue into the show about Wine and Roses, with which I also have
Days of Wine and Roses.
Days of Wine and Roses. Book by Craig Lucas, music and lyrics by Adam Gittell, directed by Michael Greif, with which I also have a connection, unfortunately. I was married to an alcoholic, so I really didn't want to see the show. I have to be honest with you. There are triggers in my life that... And so I went, all right, look, it's a play. I've seen the movie. I know the story. I thought I knew the story. But I mean, I do know the basic arc of the story. It's a story from the 50s. It's not a difficult story to follow. At that time, there were not a plethora of shows about alcoholism. There were some. There was Ray Milland in the Long Weekend, or whatever that movie was called. And then there was this one in the 60s. And in the movie, it was two. You were just in the room with two people. For the most part, you were in a tight close-ups, and you saw sweat, and you saw, anguish. This is a musical. I say that after I say anguish. This play is filled with people in pain, but it's only two people who are in pain, and it's filled with people. I wish that this were a musical. I know I'm not supposed to review the play I wanted to see. I wish that this were just a 2-character play, or maybe 3 characters with the father. I didn't need to see everybody on the boat that he was at. He could have stood toward the page, pointing toward the thing and say, "Hey, how are you, Dan?" And there didn't have to be an answer. I mean, it's theater. We could have stretched our imagination. But Adam Gittell is the guy you call him when you want dark, moody music. I mean, he did Light in the Piazza. He is, Richard Rodgers' grandson, and it's in his blood. He's Mary Rodgers' son. The music is in his blood. That's not the problem. The music was fine. You're not going to make an album out of that music. You're not going to play it on your anniversary. You're not going to,
Well, I always hope that there will be a cast album, especially when you have Kelly O'Hara in the lead.
Yes.
And I didn't get to see. I have not seen this on Broadway yet. I saw it off Broadway.
Okay.
And
well,
I have never heard her voice.
She was lovely.
So pristine.
She was
Brian
lovely.
Darcy James.
Lovely.
Here is my problem with the show. You have Brian Darcy James. He is an up-and-coming ad executive, and his role requires that he drinks. He's out schmoozing with the clients.
It's a Mad Men knockoff in a way, or Mad Men was a knockoff of that. Yes.
Yeah. And Kelly O'Hara, who also works for the agency, they meet, they fall in love. She actually starts drinking with him.
She was a teetotaler. She never drank. She
Correct.
said, "Thank you, I don't drink."
But he kind of gets her hooked. And it feels very color by numbers plot-wise. They drink, they get into trouble. They try to give it up. They drink some more, they get into more trouble, and ultimately they just crash and burn. And is it sad? Yes. Is it interesting? Not really.
Okay, here's where I come in with my knowledge. Okay. It was the first of its kind about a man and a woman and being together in the knot of the addiction. We now know that addiction is an illness. It's not a choice. It's in your genetic DNA, and there's a way to fix it, but you have to want it to be fixed. So that's the first part. The second part is, and he couldn't get her to go to AA because he decides to clean up his act after they have a kid, and she still wants to drink. She enjoys it. Who knew? She feels, she drinks chocolate, and she loves it, and so she's happy in her little la-la land that she goes to. So he gets clean, and he can't help her because you have to want to help yourself, and you have to hit bottom. Supposedly, these are the rules of Alcoholics Anonymous. And she never hit bottom. She was perfectly happy to be where she was until the end.
But
you know?
I think you hit it on the head.
What?
This was the first of its kind.
It was.
Say.
So it's very simplistic.
So yes.
Right, of course.
But that was 60 years ago.
But you can't change it.
Sure you can.
Well, okay, you're right. It's not Shakespeare.
If you're going to do it as a musical, if you're going to do a modern adaptation,
musical, I guess.
Of course you adapt it.
Okay, I hear your point.
And they didn't.
And it was. No, you're right, they didn't.
And consequently, what may have been innovative 60 years ago seems overdone, dull.
I don't know about dull. I didn't feel it was dull, but I felt that it was hard to go from
We've seen it before on many occasions.
Not singing. We haven't.
Well,
we haven't seen it singing. And
you have the music, and you have two beautiful voices.
Yes. Please stop taking serious plays about serious subjects and making them into musicals. I'm getting to the point where I can't stand it anymore. Jagged Little Pill, really? I know it was based on the music. I understand that.
I actually like this better than Jagged Little Pill, but that's not saying
Oh, wow.
much.
Yeah, wow, really?
That's not saying much.
No, God, okay. But that was a contemporary story about addiction. You see, there you are. Okay. That's what it would have had to be something that would have been acceptable, I think.
It is my contention that anything can be made into a musical. On the other hand, if this is the type of dramatic musical we're going to get, maybe we need a few more Spamalot's.
Well, Uncle Vanya, maybe.
Uncle Vanya as a musical.
As a musical. Well, I was thinking about that.
In actuality, there was a time where Chekhov was made into a musical.
In the Yiddish theater?
No, in the American theater, and it was called A Night in the Ukraine, which was the second half of A Day in Hollywood. A Night in the Ukraine. And you know what?
That was
time to bring that one back.
Absolutely. I don't see why not. I don't see why it's never been brought back. And I want to see Jelly Roll. I want to see the Jelly Roll thing come to Broadway.
Well,
so
that's for a different segment.
Who needs dry land? Who wants wet sand? All I want is you. Two corks just bobbing around. Two corks in the Long Island Sound. We're gonna float until we wash up on an island. Until we wash up on an island. We're gonna float until we wash up on an island.
There are times when Leslie and I just can't get to see the same show.
Can't find the calendar days.
So we have our own little corner or our loft or where are you
lounge.
these days?
I think
or
it's
our
going to be a
lounge.
lounge.
Yes.
I like the idea of a
And
lounge.
today, it's my turn. So here we go to Charlie's Corner. And today on the corner, I went to the Paper Mill Playhouse in Millburn, New Jersey, one of my favorite non-New York theaters. And I went to see After Midnight. And this is a review that gives us the experience of what it would be like to go to the Cotton Club back in the day when you had Louis Armstrong or Duke Ellington. And in fact, it is full of songs by Duke Ellington or Dorothy Fields or Harold Arlen. And it's a wonderful review with a very nice cast and an amazing band that when they go solo, in other words, just play a few songs, that's a highlight of the show. On the good one hand, it's mic'd so that the band really comes through. On the other hand, despite the fact that you had some very strong, powerful singers, I couldn't hear the words most of the time, which was very disappointing. The other thing that was disappointing was that really all they did was sing and dance. And they sing very nicely. The dances were good, not great. This was conceived by Jack Rattel and co-directed by Dominique Kelly, who did the choreography, and Jen Bender. But you compare this to, say, A Sophisticated Ladies. Doesn't have the style of a show like that. Or the humor of a Five Guys Named Mo. Or even the little stories that a Smokey Joe's Cafe had. And that was what disappointed me about this.
May I just say something, even though I didn't see it because I looked at the program?
Yes.
It's based on the poetry of Langston Hughes. And Langston Hughes, it says it right here in here, that it's based on the poetry of Langston Hughes.
Okay.
It says it right there. So that's the storyline, whatever it is.
But there was no storyline.
Okay, so you didn't feel that
they
nobody spoke and said then Langston.
No.
Nobody spoke Langston.
No.
How the hell could it be?
I don't
the
know.
text, whatever the texts
There
are.
was no text.
Okay.
They
I'm just reading from the
They got
playbook.
on stage and sang, and they sang
sorry.
very nicely.
Okay.
And they danced nicely, and again, this is not
Okay.
Broadway, even though a lot of shows
Can
that
transfer,
start
right.
do transfer. This has become a prime out of the on the road tryout area, and I had a good time at the show. But
What would you give it?
I
Given
guess-
all of those,
yeah.
it's not this, it's not that.
right, I would give it 2 3/4.
The 3/4 for
What it
effort?
does, it does very well, but I just wanted more.
Okay. Well, you know, we've spoken to the people at Paper Mill, and you know,
yes.
they do their best, and sometimes they do it very well.
It's a great institution. They've had some wonderful productions there, some of which have been to Broadway.
Right.
Some of which they just did at the Paper Mill, and they were really good.
Okay.
Okay.
So we
He's
saw a
jumping
play.
at the bit here, guys.
I can't wait. I can't wait. If you can't see me, I don't know which camera I'm on. If
You're
you
on your
can't see
camera
me,
right
I want you to know that we saw, not together, but we saw a play called Prayer for the French Republic, which we both missed off Broadway. So everybody was screaming about it last year, and we didn't get to see it. We got to see it this year. And I won't say I was blown away, but I thought of it in many different terms. I thought, okay, this is a tighter, Americanized version of that play, Leopoldstadt. Same kind of thing. Families going through just 1 or 2 generations, not all the way back. No people played double or triple parts. But it's about living in France, wanting to be French, saying the prayer for the French Republic, which I've never heard before, but it's make me a good French person and let France be the best country in the world. Kind of, that's basically what the prayer for the French Republic is. It doesn't say anything about you can't be Muslim, you can't be Jewish, you can't be anything. I mean, it's a Catholic country, but you know.
Well, in this case, they are Jewish.
Yes, the people we're looking at.
And this play, and it is a Jewish family. Some members are religious, some are not. Some aren't even Jewish, technically, or some converted.
Right.
And we time shift, and here the time shifts are very clear
Right.
and very precise. From a family in 2016 living in France and hosting a distant cousin from the United States, and then going back during World War II and shortly thereafter when France was occupied.
And where the Jews were given up, almost gleefully from everything that I've ever read.
Yes.
But the French walk around today saying, we saved more Jews than any other country. They say this. And what they mean is we didn't catch as many Jews as in every other country. I'm sorry, but there is so much anti-Semitism in France right now that...
And that is
And
the gist of the play. The family is scared, and the father is. They have a very good life in France, but the son has been beat up on several occasions because he insists on wearing his yarmulke out on the streets.
And they're not a religious family. He
Well,
just decides...
they're quasi-religious. He becomes religious.
They're quasi-religious, and he starts to lean more toward religion.
So the family becomes more traditional.
Kids do that. It's a rebellion in the kids too. I mean, it may have something to do with that, and it may have more, but...
And they decide that the father decides he wants to go to Israel. He wants to go to Israel, which
says,
sets
"I wanna
up
go
a
to
whole,
Israel."
should we go, should we stay, we have a life here, will we continue to have a life here? And also sets up a very interesting discussion with their daughter, who's 28 and, shall we say, finding herself, and the American cousin, who is what I would call a useful idiot. She's someone who has done a smattering of research on the Middle East, thinks she knows it, and doesn't know a damn thing.
She's a good mouthpiece. She's a necessary evil to the play. She's
Right. And that is the one part of the play that I thinking, oh, he should have done it a little differently. And we should mention this was by Joshua Harmon.
Yes. Who did the what was the one about the Jew?
Bad Jews?
Bad Jews. Yeah, I mean he has a feeling he likes to
And
write about
directed by
Jews.
David Cromer.
And David Cromer is without doubt one of our favorite directors. And he is now appearing in a show as well. So it's all over the place.
But getting back to the text, and the daughter is arguing with her distant cousin, and she gives some very good arguments, but she leaves out a few crucial ones that I think would have been appropriate.
Well, we have to also
the
understand
time.
how quickly theater dates. This 2016 was the year of Trump. So whatever was happening in 2016 in America suddenly becomes different when we see it now in 2024.
Right.
And when we're on the verge of doing it again.
Well, in 2024, I feel like we're in France.
Well, that's it. And also, of course, the war had not broken out, neither in Ukraine nor in Israel. And,
That's true.
And the Gaza Strip, what is no longer called the Gaza Strip, Gaza. But there are some recognizable, and when I said Leopoldstadt, Betsy Adam, who plays the wife, of course, was one of the leading characters
Yes.
in Leopoldstadt. Anthony Edwards, whom we know from TV's, which hospital was he part of? He was St. Elmo's Fire. No, what was the name of that?
I think you mean St. Elsewhere?
St. Elsewhere, yes. I like St. Elmo's Fire. I think a hospital should be named St. Elmo's Fire. And Richard Masur and Daniel Oreskes. So Daniel Oreskes has been in several plays about Jews. He was in The King of the Jews.
Right.
Richard Masur, of course, we've known on TVs and in movies forever. And now he has gracefully, I may say gracefully, become a grandfather in this role. But he's also seen in 1944 as a young man.
The character.
The character, right. And and they talk about who they lost. They talk about in 1944 who they lost. They talk about in 2016 how they don't remember who anybody was because...
And they talk about their piano store.
Yes,
A store
well,
that
that-
they have run for over 100 years.
Yes.
For generation
And they didn't just
after
run it.
generation.
They made the pianos initially. They actually made
And
the
there's actually
pianos.
one of their pianos on stage, and it is
beautiful.
beautiful.
It's beautiful.
I'm sorry, piano lesson. You have been.
No, well,
you
no,
have
this wasn't
been
carved.
outdone.
No, not because
Oh,
the
it's a
carving on
gorgeous-
piano
it's
lesson
a
was
gorgeous-
gorgeous.
it's a
Well,
gorgeous
It's a
piano.
gorgeous non-carved
gorgeous
piano.
piano.
That's the
finish
next
is
time on the piano.
And I don't want to forget Frances Ben-Hamu as the daughter. Wonderful, wonderful performance.
She's in a...
And Molly Ranson, whose character is also named Molly, and she's the distant cousin.
Yeah, that was
from
funny that they
America.
did that. Frances Ben-Hamu is playing a character who's very depressed and doesn't know why. They don't know. She says, well, just look around. You can see why I'm... It's sort of that thing that used to be malaise. There was a general term for it in France, just called malaise. You didn't know what it was. And women would take to their fainting couches. She stays in bed all day. And then she goes out all night and she drinks a lot. So maybe we can tell what some of the problems are. But the point is that it's very pertinent. I mean, it feels old because if they actually did move to Israel, which they are doing at the end of the play, their place is empty except for the piano, and they leave. And so you think that, okay, they're now in Israel. So I'm thinking now, oh my God, were they in any of the places that got bombed? So that took me away from the play for just a minute. That's not what it's about. But it is about this family, and it is about... And they talk about everybody hates the Jews. We have to bring this out. It's like the old Tom Lehrer song about Brotherhood Week. It's the so-and-sos hate the so-and-sos and everybody hates the Jews.
Yes.
And this is, time immemorial. And why does everybody hate the Jews? That's the question that they ask. And they cannot answer
And they do
it.
try to answer
They
it.
try. They say, well,
you
the
can't.
Jesus thing. But, the Pope forgave that. So that's no longer an issue.
And Egypt was before Jesus.
Right. So the idea is there just is no way to truly figure out. Everybody has to have somebody they look down on. Everybody has to have, not really, I'm just saying that that's the way the world works. When every new group came to America, they became the bottom of the ladder. They always stood on other people's shoulders when the next group came. So anyway, that's it. It just brought up so much. It's such an exciting play. I hope I'm just, I give it 5, I give it 6, I give it 11. It's not a perfect play,
No.
but it's a play of real ideas that is very pertinent to our world today. And I just want everybody to see it. I really want everybody to see it. So,
Well, what I found interesting, we've seen so many plays dealing with the Holocaust, or something like Parade, which dealt with anti-Semitism
Right.
here in America, but earlier in the 20th century. Here's one that's dealing with the situation today,
right.
and ironically is more relevant than it was
When it was
when it was first written. I'm sure the
Absolutely.
playwright had no idea that we would not quite be living the play,
Right.
but sort of we are.
I think it was 2018 that it was on. So even then, it wouldn't have been as relevant as it is today.
Right.
I didn't know what to expect. There are 2 small intermissions. I didn't care.
I did. It's 3 hours long.
It went by like
I
that,
needed to
even
get
with the
up.
intermissions.
It is a fast-moving play.
It moves. It does what theater should do. It makes you think. It makes you talk. My sister and I saw it together. We are. I said we're half Jewish. She said there's no such thing as half Jewish, which I know, of course. But the point is that when people were rounded up, people like me would have been rounded up too.
Absolutely.
So I don't care what she says, what she calls it. It's I feel very much involved, and and again, where am I going to go? I'm not going to go to Israel. It's ridiculous.
Hopefully, saner minds will prevail.
I'm thinking of going to Canada if anything goes. If anything happens here, they don't.
As bad
want,
as it is, it was worse in the 30s and 40s.
Oh, of course.
In America.
Well, my parents, my father, my mother was born here, but my father came in 1920 to get away from the Bolsheviks and the revolution. So.
My family was fairly lucky. Three of my grandparents were born here. The fourth emigrated when he was a child.
Yeah, my father was like a baby when they started. They went all the way around before they got to New York. So, well, this has been exciting.
There are times that I do find it a little scary.
Oh, God, I find it scary all the time.
And
I find it scary when we walk past a synagogue and there are stanchions, permanent cement stanchions. So God forbid a truck with a bomb in it is going to come. It'll slow it down. I mean,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But
what would you give it? What would you give the
theater?
play?
I find I can't give to Broadway Cares anymore because they're sending part of it to Gaza.
Oh. Well, see, that's a whole other subject, which it's
problem is
very
it's not going to the Gaza.
Yeah, but see, the problem is it's not possible to talk really about what's going on over there with a lot of people. And I understand that. My sister and I have a pact not to talk about it because we don't hold we both support Israel, but we don't quite support. We don't both have the same outlook, the same viewpoint.
Okay.
I don't want to, and I'm not going to say which one is which.
Okay.
But the point is that this is such a dynamic thing going on now, and to spark it, it's like this is the flint that you can go to see, and then the rest of the conversation
How
comes.
many playbills would you give this?
I did already. I said 11.
You said 11. Okay. I will give this 4.5 out of 5.
Okay. But it's a long time that I've been this excited about a piece of work. It's not perfect. I'm not trying to say it's perfect, but it will get you. It's an earwig. It will just go right in.
And it's worth the 3 hours that you will.
It's worth the 3 hours. Thank you for agreeing with me, George. Aren't you glad I made you get that last-minute ticket?
I saw it, yes. Thank you. Thank you to the press people for getting me in there so quickly.
Thank you.
And go see this show.
Absolutely.
And speaking of shows, that is our show for the evening. So when you go to the theater, look for Leslie and me, us too.
On the aisle.